welcome again to Higher PhD's Alternative Career Path Success Stories ACPSS series. I'm Connie, your host today. Today we have Zoe with us, who is a senior UX researcher at Electronic Arts. I am so excited. Hi, Zoe. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Yes, I'm excited to be here. I'm a senior UX researcher at EA. I'm relatively new. I started like 2 or 3 months ago, and I'm really enjoying it so far. But my background is actually in sports psychology, and then I've worked at a medical device company, and then a bank, and now I'm here. So I've had a bit of a winding path to get here.
Yeah, that's the best, right? Like we all know that's the best. So like can you first tell us what does US researcher do in EA?
Yeah. So I work with a product team really closely, and then together we identify sort of areas where more information would be helpful. And it's my job to go in and speak to users and get information from them about their interactions with our product and figuring out how we can improve it and make it better and make sure that it's meeting the needs of the people who are the end users of that thing. Um, and that can look like lots of different things. It could be interviews, it could be a survey. So there's lots of different ways to go about it. And that all is sort of dependent on what the team wants to know more about.
Yeah, so how did your PhD help? I think that's the most curious question of our audience. Like you were in sports psychology, right? You said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how did that come together? You
Yeah.
think? Yeah.
That's a good question. I I think while the topic area itself is obviously different, right? Like video games versus sports psychology. Um, I think two things. One, the underlying methods are the same. So, like the methodological theory and approach is the same. And so, learning how to do really good research in grad school is the sort of key transferable skill. But then also the sort of like psychological theories and principles of human behavior and well-being. And I actually, in my PhD, studied mental health. And so there was a lot of stuff to do with like social support and social connection and using that now where I work at EA, we really focus on social connection. And so a lot of the sort of, yeah, overarching theory and principles there are also the same.
That's awesome to hear. I think a lot of people UX research is becoming such a hot job topic that just
Mhm.
happened in recent years. I feel like as I'm monitoring the industry for PhD. So like so glad to have you here. And then I saw like you were design researcher in TD, and how is that different with what you
Yeah,
do now?
that's a good question.
Mm.
Again, I think a lot of the sort of overarching theory is the same, like the theory of human behavior and principles and like human computer interaction and that sort of thing. Um, and the methods are very similar, so using similar approaches to learn from people. It was just a very different topic area. So being focused on banking, and I was specifically on an innovation team there. So looking at like future facing technology and how that might be applied at the bank to help support customers. So um, yeah, I think kind of the same answer to the previous question, really.
Those two jobs, the kind of the same job but different title names.
Yes, yeah.
So what kind of title names are out there for the same job?
Oh, that's a good question.
Uh,
Definitely UX researcher, design researcher, like user researcher.
uh,
Some people have like social scientists or social behavioral researchers.
uh,
Um, I think those would be sort of the main ones. And then I think within marketing too, there are folks with similar titles in marketing as well, potentially.
Another question is about like around the pros and cons of this job. Like we often ask the question, hey, for people who are still deciding if this is for them, like
Mhm.
what would you say the personality or whatever trait you have that's good for this job
Hmm.
or not?
I think you have to be very curious. Critical thinking is important. Being able to like interact with others easily, whether that's people on your team within your company, but also with the end user of whatever thing it is that you're working on. Um, and then yeah, being very like open-minded and collaborative, I think, like being able to work really well with other people.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
then another question, like everybody curious, like how do I break into the job? I don't have experience. Every job asks for experience. So how did you break into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you felt this way, but I know for me when I was in my PhD and I decided like I didn't want to stay in academia, it's really hard to know what to do because all the people you're around have taken this one path, and that's academia. And so it's hard. I think they can try their best to give very helpful advice, but they know the thing that they did. And so trying to figure out how to get out of that can be really hard. Um, and so I reached out to anyone I knew. Like I talked to my aunt who put me in touch with someone she used to work with. And I talked to my friend whose partner did something that I thought could be interesting. And tried to like spread a huge net of people to talk to. So relied on my like personal network, but also just like cold messaged people on LinkedIn. Like I would find some similarity, whether it was the same like degree or same school that we had gone to or same something, part of the same club, messaged them on LinkedIn and said like, "Hey, can we chat? I would love to know more about what you do." And I don't know how many meetings I set up, like 30, 40 maybe, of just like super quick coffee chats with people to learn about what they did. Um, and not like a strings attached call. Like I wasn't asking for any jobs or anything, like truly just what do you do every day and do you like it? Um, and I found that really, really helpful. And that's how I found out about UX research as a career. Um, and then the other thing I found really helpful is if I saw a job posting on LinkedIn that I was interested in and it showed the hiring manager, so not the HR person, but like the person responsible for hiring, I would also try and set up a call with that person. Again, not like a, hey, give me the job or like a sales pitch really, but just I'm super interested in this. I'm curious to know and ask them questions about the job and like things that they thought a candidate would need to be successful. Um, and I found both of those to be really, really helpful.
I love what you said about the no string attached because a lot of times, like I don't know how many messages I get per week actually to like
Mhm.
with a string attached. Like I run this organization. I love to talk to you about what I do, but
Yeah.
if there's string attached, I don't know. I don't have time for it. Sometimes.
Ooh,
Yeah, so this is
totally.
such a great advice for folks. Like, don't, yeah, get the connection first. Like, just really go out with a pure curiosity
Yeah,
first, right?
totally. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, things will come along. And wow, and then you said 30, 40. I love that number too, because that's the
It's a
first
lot.
time. Yeah, first time I heard the advice of the number, because folks also didn't know how many should I do,
Yeah.
right?
And that's a
Yeah,
total ballpark. Like I don't remember the
yeah.
specifics, but it was a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that was great. And so what other option that you thought you encountered but you
Hmm.
didn't think that was yours? Yeah.
I also looked at like pharma and medical science liaison. I know that's a big one. Um, I think for me, the challenge there was because my PhD was not in a specific, like, I wasn't specifically focused on a particular disease or like a biological science or something like that. Um, I found that for me, a big hurdle or barrier would have been that piece. Like in job ads, a lot of there's a lot of specifics, like have a PhD in neuroscience or whatever. And I didn't. And I talked to people who said that that wasn't necessarily something that would prevent you from entering, but it would make it really, really difficult. Like getting your first job without that would be challenging. Um, and then as I learned more about it and I learned more about UX research, there were just sort of things about UX research that I think suited me a little better. So that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, like audience, you don't know, we actually co-workers, so I know what
Yeah.
Zoe does. Like part of it was like, oh my God, this is like PhD dream come true. You're doing research like but in games.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it was awesome. So like related to that though, like you now audience, like Zoe has been to different industries. Like, can you give us a little bit of like pros and cons, at least from your perspective, from banking, games, and pharma? What are the different culture and anything that you want to share? Yeah.
Yeah. I think pharma is hard. I was at a medical device company and I was not there for very long. I was there for almost a year. I think so. I can't speak to that industry very well, but it was a really small startup when I was there, and I think that was something I realized, like the sort of small startup world versus like a bigger corporation. Those are super different, and so I think that was where I realized, okay, like I want to work somewhere bigger where there's like a bit more um, maybe structure for a particular role, and there's like, I don't know, more policies and procedures, and which I totally know is not some people's thing. Like I think at a startup, you're wearing way more hats. Things can be a little murky and fuzzy and not totally clear. And I think some people really thrive in that. And I just think I wasn't going to. Um, Whereas working somewhere, yeah, it's like a bit larger. People have sort of clearly defined areas where they work. Um, and yeah, there's like, an RSP and stuff like that, is something I like.
It's again like finding what you like, right? Through
Mhm.
trying out. Yeah.
Totally.
Trying
And
out things. Yeah.
yeah, this is like rewinding really far, but I think that like if my biggest piece of advice for anyone is like try anything and everything, because even if you don't find out what you love to do, you can find out what you don't love to do. Because I started undergrad, like sure I was going to be a physiotherapist, and I was like taking all the courses to lead me there. And then I volunteered in a clinic and I like really hated it. I was like, this is not for me. Um, and then I was like, but no, I want to be a physio. It's the clinic. I'll volunteer in a different clinic. And I did, and I still really didn't like it. And I was like, oh man, like now what? Um, and then I had a class where I got to do like a qualitative research project. And I was like, this is incredible. I love this. And then I volunteered in that person's lab, and that became my master's supervisor. And then she was my PhD supervisor. Um, and I just had this feeling of like, oh, I really love research. I love what I'm doing. And so, yeah, I think trying out a thing that I thought I liked, but then found out I didn't, led me into a totally different direction.
Another thing I think I want to ask about is any suggestion for people who are trying to get break into UX? Um, what what do you think they might be lacking fresh out of school, if any? And then what can they do?
That's a good question. I think often in industry, the sort of like pace of research is a bit different. So um, doing research a bit more quickly and having to understand trade-offs, like what's, methodologically versus for the business, what are different trade-offs that need to be made? Because I think in academia, you have like a lifetime to study one topic and identify every single problem with an approach and then address them all. And that's I think, yeah, sometimes having to know, okay, I don't have all of that time available to me, so I'm gonna have to do something a little bit more quickly. And this is something the business really needs. And so how can I work within those constraints? And I think those constraints are really different. So um yeah, understanding that like they're two very different spaces, and that means different things for what you're able to do research wise.
Yeah, what is the biggest difference you find between academia and industry research?
A few things. I think timelines are very different. Like,
Mm.
you know, a PhD, you have 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Uh,
Hey, 10.
yeah. Uh, Whereas like that's not the case, right? Like in industry, people need to make decisions quickly, and so research has to be done. It couldn't take 7 years. That would just be not helpful for anyone who would need the results of that work. So yeah, I think things happen more quickly. Um, and then I think having like funding available. So instead of having to like try and get people to speak to you for free, or apply for every single grant out there to scrape together $1,000 to be able to offer your participants a gift card or whatever, usually there is money available to like compensate participants and to have access to like a transcription software, for example. So yeah, like access to resources is different also.
Oh, another question I'm personally curious about.
Mhm.
Like for PhD who didn't do human research, I see your advantage of you've done your PhD in human research. You already know how to do participant. For those who didn't, do, what are their chances? What can they do? I did animal research. I did microscopic animals. Like I never deal with a clinical trial as me managing it directly, right? So if you ask me to go do participant study, I gotta learn it new. I know I can learn it, but it's not like right away I know how to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I break into the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think typically UX roles require a background in like psychology or sociology or like more behavioral sciences. Um, I don't think like that's not to say it's not available to someone else, but I do think that would be a big slash difficult hurdle to overcome. Um, I do think though that with a skill set in like statistics and that type of analysis, there's also like data scientist roles, or there are some UX roles that are specifically like quant
Mm-hmm.
roles. And so maybe that would be a direction that would be like a still a jump, but less of a jump. And then you could sort of build experience that way potentially.
Mm. It sounds a little bit like your barrier to MSL without that kind of
Mhm.
area,
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
it's not impossible. It's just harder.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
whereas that
that's
person would obviously be much more suited to the MSL role than I was, or maybe would more easily
yeah.
have path to entry. Yeah.
Oh, I am actually curious about like how is your day and week like? I know that's such a general question. The often answer is like kind of varies, but like if you're trying to tell kids they're inspired to be you, what would you say? I
Yeah.
guess yeah.
Uh, okay. That's a hard question. It varies.
Yeah, it is a hard
Yeah.
question.
Um, I think, it varies. That's something I really like about it is you have lots of different stuff to do. I find I have a short attention span, so doing the same thing all the time is hard, but with lots of variety, I can stay engaged. Um, but I think, yeah, lots of meetings with different like product teams and stakeholders to figure out like where are they at, what do they need. Um, and so, yeah, that would be the more like business side of things is making sure you understand where people are and what you can do for them. And then from the research side, it's a really depends what phase of a project I'm in. So if it's early on developing a research roadmap, identifying, what questions should we be trying to answer? How can we best answer those? Once we figure that out, talk to stakeholders again, make sure everyone's sort of on the same page. Um, then getting a study set up. So finding your participants, creating your interview guide, whatever it might be, like all the sort of materials and documents you need. Then actually doing the research. So that can look like lots of different things. Last week, I finished a project that was a diary study. So I met with participants, had them sort of look at this app that we have, get their sort of feedback, their ideas about it, and then they got to use it for 10 days. And so I would just message them on the app every day, ask what their thoughts were, how was it going. They would tell me, I would keep track, do that for 10 days, and then at the end they would come back in and they did another interview and a survey. And so that took sort of 2 weeks, and it was with uh, yeah, different participants. So that would be like data collection is a lot of like setting up time to talk to people, following up with folks. Um, I think recruitment is always something that's time consuming, right? Like reaching out again, reaching out again. Uh, and then like data analysis or sharing out of a report. So like pooling all of that into something helpful and then sharing that helpful information.
Oh, do you find the communication that you have to do in academia different? Like how different?
Very, very, very
Uh-huh.
different. Um,
I'll tell us more.
Uh, I think, I mean, like an academic paper is like 30 pages long and it's all huge words and like, lots of complexity and lots of, um, I think, yeah, it's like all of the specific details that there could possibly be. Um, I think on the sort of industry side, people don't have time to read a really dense 30-page report. So trying to figure out how you can distill that same level of complexity and that same, impactful research in much more digestible ways. And sometimes that's really hard. And that takes a lot of practice and a lot of experience. I think that's something I'm still working on personally. But yeah, how can you pull all of that information that you want to put in a 30-page report into like a 20-minute presentation that is, not boring and keeps people engaged and is giving them information that is actually helpful and they can action on to make a decision. So yeah, I think very different is the short answer.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I read your last presentation. It was really good. Like the
Thank
slide, I
you.
didn't go, but I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like I can take away actions right away.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. It
mhm.
was
Yeah,
really
I'm glad.
good. Yeah. And then like for this career path, like what kind of growth opportunity do you see like after this position and then what's next?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on how a team is set up and structured. So, um, some places there's like a separate UX team and they work sort of like contractors within a business. And so a business team that has an idea and they come and they hire you and you go out and do work with them. The opportunities are a little different there because you're within that one team, but there would be, usually a more junior researcher, senior researcher, maybe research manager, and you can kind of go up that way. Um, and then in some, like in other places, you're more embedded within a team, like I am here. So rather than there be a specific research team that people reach out to, you're integrated into that business team. Um, and I think so same thing there. There's like a more junior researcher, senior researcher, staff researcher, and so you kind of just keep moving up that way.
Any challenges you overcome during your career path, your entire career journey, that
Hmm.
you feel is probably useful to share that you got a challenge you overcome and then you're learning you want to share with the audience? Yeah.
Hmm. That's a good question. I think something that is I found always feels really hard, but I'm always glad I've done after is when I decide something isn't for me, moving on. Um, so like, yeah, I was at a medical device company and deciding, like realizing that that wasn't for me and trying to figure out where should I go from here was like really, really hard. But then I did do it and it feels scary, but I'm glad I did. And then when I was at TD, um, feeling same thing. I really enjoyed my time there, but I got to a point where I thought, I think here are reasons why I don't think this is the best spot for me anymore. But my team was wonderful and it was really hard to decide like, okay, I think I should go somewhere else. But now that I have, I'm glad I did. So I think, I don't know, that sort of self-awareness when you realize maybe you should try the next thing can be really difficult, but usually is rewarding, I would say, in my experience.
How did you overcome it? Did you talk to friends or like how did you make that decision? Okay, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, lots of talking to people, I think, and sort of weighing pros and cons and identifying like what exactly is it that's not for me and do I think that this other thing will address that so I'm not just sort of repeating. Um, but yeah, lots of chatting, lots of thinking.
Say any more things you want to share with the audience before we get to the final advice part?
Don't think so. Honestly, just that like I know finishing your PhD can feel like this huge daunting thing of like, oh my God, what am I gonna do next? I've done this one same thing for 10 years and now what? Uh, yes, I feel like you're not alone, like everybody, I think, maybe not everybody, that's a big statement. I assume most people feel that way too. I know I did. Um, but that once you figure it out, it feels very nice to have sort of accomplished this really incredible thing, but move on to something new.
Yeah, that's another thing I find quite the communication part that's more difficult in what different in politics and in business is that they like
Mm,
certainty statement.
yes.
And then
Yeah.
PhD keep giving them, oh, with like 95%
Yeah.
confidence kind of
Yeah.
statement. They're like, oh, they're driving them nuts. You
Yeah.
know?
You're like, well, probably, but we don't know.
Like, do you mean probably or are you sure? I'm like, I am.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever be sure. And then we
Yeah.
started getting to the loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's
oh
a
yeah, so
really good
how
point.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So how do you deal with that? Like, what do you have to do to communicate differently?
Yeah, I think as long as you have a strong rationale for why you're saying what you're saying, people understand. It's just a matter of like having a compelling rationale, like
Yeah.
and demonstrating here's where there is maybe, I don't know that I want to say certainty, but like here are things we're really sure about and here's why we're really sure about them. And here are things that like we think and like data are suggesting, but we don't these we're less sure about and here's why, but here's how we can learn more about that thing or whatever. So I think as long as you have an explanation for what it is you're saying, it's okay. It's just yeah,
Yeah,
it's different.
yeah. It's not like upfront. We're not sure. I'm like, then what did I pay you for?
Mhm, mhm.
Like, it's so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, yeah. So any final words to the audience?
I don't think so. Just,
Yeah.
stay positive. It'll all work out.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. Stay positive, keep doing things, keep trying things like you said, right, Zoe?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then keep
Try
talking
lot,
to people,
yeah,
right?
try lots of stuff, talk to lots of people. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, thank you so much, Zoe, like for your wisdom today, and I'm so glad to have you. So if you're interested to hear more about us and more of the stories and more career journeys, and then these pearls of wisdom, please subscribe below.